Hello, everyone. I'm very excited today to finally have one of the top leaders in the crypto space, Michael Vogel, who is the founder of Netcoin and also the founder of CoinStream in the US, which is a virtual version of the Bitcoin ATM, where anyone can now buy a Bitcoin fast and securely online. And also with his passion in entrepreneurship, Michael is also the founder of Encore Ventures. So, Michael, I really wanted to thank you very much for being a guest on my channel. And I'm very excited to hear your insights on the crypto space and Bitcoin, since I think a lot of people know and heard about Bitcoin, but may still have a lot of questions in the space, including myself, which is why I am very excited to start this interview. So thank you very much again for your time today. And it is really an honor to have you on my channel as the first crypto expert.
Awesome. No, thanks for having me on. I'm sure we'll have a great discussion. There's lots of cool things to talk about in this space.
All right. So, first of all, even before getting into the Bitcoin questions that I have, I was very curious myself to hear how you actually got involved in the crypto space and also ended up building your own crypto exchange. And I'm pretty sure that it was a very novel or new industry when you started your journey in this space.
So I got interested in Bitcoin kind of end of 2013, beginning of 2014. Ironically, that was the first kind of major boom bust cycle with Bitcoin. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar. In the last few years, Bitcoin hit all-time highs, 69, 70,000, and then, crash. When I got interested in it, it had just peaked at 1,000 and then crashed to, I'll say, $200. And so back then, 2013, 2014, Bitcoin was already being written off as kind of the fad. It's over, right? Bitcoin's going to disappear. It's kind of done. It was a fun experiment. But I drilled down and started reading about it, going down that rabbit hole. And yeah, what I find really interesting about Bitcoin is that it's basically this monetary system that is created from the ground up. It started after that 2008, 2009 financial crisis. Banks are being bailed out. The US dollar is being inflated, and Bitcoin just represented this very interesting change. It was also interesting from a technology perspective. Here we are as a potential currency for the internet. So yeah, that's how I got into it. It was just like anyone else, just reading about it and just really realizing how transformative a technology it is.
I think nowadays, a lot of people have heard about Bitcoin after that, Parabolic Run up to $65,000. But I'm sure that not a lot of people know how it works or what the use cases are for Bitcoin. So in your case, do you actually see Bitcoin being used in actual life, such as going to In-N-Out or McDonald's, buying a burger or pizza, or even using it for groceries or even for, a cup of coffee? Or is it just a store of value like we have as gold? And, people say that Bitcoin is the digital version of gold.
Yeah, that's a very interesting nuance. And so we can look at Bitcoin, then we can look at other coins like Ethereum, and, there's about 10,000 others, maybe even more at this point. In the US, Bitcoin is classified as an asset, not a currency, and it's taxed that way. But I think when you look globally, the banking system is fairly robust. There are problems, there are challenges, there are issues with the US dollar as a currency, but in general, it's fairly reliable and predictable. The system relatively works. However, in a lot of countries, that's not the case. And so what we've seen, certainly over the last few years, is more interest in crypto and Bitcoin as being more of an interest. So in countries like Argentina, for example, there's hyperinflation. People's savings are being destroyed, and savers are being punished for holding on to local currency because it's suddenly worthless. Well, when you're living in that kind of scenario, suddenly cryptocurrency seems a lot more interesting. Yeah, Bitcoin may fluctuate like crazy, but the local currency is even crazier. And we can even take the volatility out of the question and look at these things called stable coins. So a stable coin, for example, USDT or USDC, these are these stable cryptocurrencies that are tied to the US dollar, for example. And so that's very appealing to someone around the world where either they don't have access to banking or their local currency is problematic. In those markets, I think we're already seeing it being used as a currency. Everywhere else, Bitcoin right now is basically becoming a de facto digital gold, right? We're seeing huge inflation right now all over the world, and gold hasn't responded in the way it normally would during these inflationary scenarios. And I think that's because a lot of the capital that would normally be going to gold is potentially going to Bitcoin, or at least getting ready to go into Bitcoin. We're definitely seeing institutions in the US, BlackRock, Fidelity, a lot of big names getting ready to unroll financial products with Bitcoin. Yeah, it's okay to think of Bitcoin as a digital bank account in cyberspace. Yes, it can be used for transactions, but it's also just a very predictable store of value. That's where we are at this point.
But have you ever used Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency to buy something before? Like a cup of coffee or even like whatever.
So when I got started in 2013, 2014, that was the dream, right? The internet of money, right? The currency protocol for the internet. That's actually what interested me at the beginning. What we're seeing now with Bitcoin as more of an investment or speculative asset. In some ways, there's an opportunity cost. It's like, well, do I want to buy this cup of coffee with my Bitcoin? That could end up being a $50,000 cup of coffee in 5 years, right? That if Bitcoin continues to accelerate. So personally, have I used it for transactions? Yes, absolutely. But like I said, once you're in the crypto ecosystem, you can allocate however you like, right? Like in day-to-day life, people have savings accounts, they have checking accounts. I think the same can be said for crypto. Once you're in that ecosystem, you really don't even need traditional banking, because let's say you just exclusively want to transact in US dollars. Well, you can, because you can now convert that portion of your savings that you don't want to just leave in a savings account, aka Bitcoin, let's say, and you can move it into something else. Or you don't necessarily have to cash out. There are lots of ways online where you can spend Bitcoin. People do every year in record numbers. I think, time will tell what exactly those ratios look like. But I think, we're already seeing transaction volumes in the crypto ecosystem that are getting close or even exceeding in some cases what Visa does in a particular year. So I think it's only going to keep growing.
I didn't know it exceeded what the volume of Visa, but that's very impressive. So as I hear you, so since, Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies do not have a real, country behind it, as you say, do you anticipate that the cryptocurrency or even Bitcoin can become the, to-go global currency and may even replace dollars in the future?
So that is the biggest question. I think what some people think is for Bitcoin to succeed, the dollar has to fail. I mean, I certainly don't want to see that happen. That's a devastating scenario. So I think it has its place. I think in the US, if regulators really wanted to, they could stamp out and, let's say, ban crypto exchanges from operating and make it very difficult for people to buy and sell Bitcoin. But I think it becomes a very useful tool for government and financial institutions to be able to move money more efficiently. If you go to the bank and you want to wire money to someone in another country right now, it's very inefficient. I mean, try doing that on a Saturday. You just can't, right? In 2023, you can't just send money to someone in another country on a weekend. Like, imagine how strange that is, right? Bitcoin is 24/7. And we're even seeing institutions like JP Morgan, they have this JPM coin that they're testing for that exact purpose, instant settlement of trades in the stock market. So will Bitcoin replace the US dollar? No, but I think it will improve the financial world in general and just make things run more efficiently. So that's my view.
It will be really interesting to see how, Bitcoin works out in the future. And I'm really looking forward to see how it gets into the general population. But, thanks for that great insight. Now, I think that one of the most important events, based on my knowledge in the crypto space or for the crypto investors, and they're keeping an eye on, is the Bitcoin halving event, which happens every 4 years. Now, based on the past history, Bitcoin price usually goes parabolic and touches its peak usually after 15 to 18 months after this Bitcoin halving event occurs, and then crashes back down. Do you believe in the Bitcoin halving pattern? And if so, have you been investing based on this cycle? And do you still think that after the next Bitcoin halving, which will happen in 2024, Bitcoin may go for another parabolic rally, which usually, bypasses the previous all-time high? So even going over 6 digits per coin.
Yeah. So with Encore Ventures, we buy Bitcoin in all markets on almost a daily basis in varying amounts. Yes, in the past, the halving has had a predictable impact on the trajectory of Bitcoin. Is history likely to repeat itself? I'll give you an easy answer and I'll say possibly. But what I think will have a bigger impact is actually the launch of US-based Bitcoin ETFs, these products coming from Wall Street, right? So that you and I, from our online stock trading account, can invest in Bitcoin in a very easily regulated way without having to hold the asset independently. But just the fact that a Main Street investor can invest in Bitcoin, I think that will just eclipse any impact that the halving would normally have. There's just so much capital, more than we can appreciate, on just a monumental scale, that is waiting to invest in Bitcoin. And I think that'll just have such a huge impact like we haven't seen, because Bitcoin is still a relatively new-ish and small market cap compared to the trillions of dollars in existence that are invested. So I see that having a huge impact, and it may affect volatility as well. It may make the ride even crazier. We'll see. Now, we talked about inflation earlier. So is Bitcoin a hedge for inflation? Is that a reason why people invest in it? I think ideologically, yes, there's a case to be made for that. But what we have also seen is, yes, Bitcoin is a risky asset class for sure. And what tends to happen when things go sour in the market, when the stock market is bad, when real estate is bad, when just financial times are bad, people tend to sell the most most risky asset in their portfolio. That's just human nature, right? You want to kind of just de-risk and just kind of chill out. Let's just see. Warren Buffett may disagree. He may say when things are bad, invest, let's go. But traditionally, that's what happened. And we have kind of seen that correlation with the stock market and Bitcoin, right? When times are good, okay, things are going well, but they could be even better if I put some money in Bitcoin, if I put some money in Ethereum. There is somewhat of a greed aspect as well. That's also human nature. We see that in the stock market as well. The reason why people will invest in Bitcoin varies, but just the ability for capital to now be involved in Bitcoin is a very big deal. I guess my point is, once that happens, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin will go into like a very predictable straight line. It never has. But I'll also say one more thing, right? Myself and others that are interested in Bitcoin, we don't necessarily follow or are worried about these kind of massive swings because we're interested in Bitcoin from just a different perspective. We see the long-term value of it, and we know that it's going to be pretty wild along the way, and it'll hit another all-time high most likely, and it'll probably hit another serious low at some point. But if you believe in Bitcoin kind of as a long-term valuable asset and the value that it brings around the world, both in terms of technology and financial empowerment and all that, then it's okay.
So it sounds like it's a long-term investment for you, and you don't pay a lot of attention to the short-term up and down, like Warren Buffett said with his investments.